All right, welcome back to Best Hour of Their Day. We're continuing our series of bringing on the derelict doctors. And today we have a new friend of mine, Ron Torrance. I met Ron a couple of weeks ago. I was working a level 1 in, where were we? Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with a good buddy, your good buddy, Nunu. And
Yeah.
he invited you and your fiance, not quite wife out yet, out to dinner. And then we all just kind of hit it off. I think that's pretty common amongst the CrossFit community.
Mm-hmm.
You just make friends pretty easily. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I think we know a lot about CrossFit, and with that brings us together as the community. But then we start nerding out about whether it's about we ate the bone marrow at the restaurant, right? We're sitting there going like, why is this so much better for us? And like we didn't necessarily like it the most, but it was something that we talked about. But I feel like everybody in the CrossFit community is going to be somebody that is going to finish something, isn't going to quit on you. There's a lot of things that like really bring us together as a community, and you're gonna support each other, right? And those are some things that I think that community aspect really is a good foundation, and something that I talk to patients about all the time, where it's exercise, diet, sleep, stress management, and then you need that community component, and that's really what the CrossFit community brings.
That's a good point, because we tell people, every box at some point will have a cheater, someone that shaves reps.
Mm-hmm.
And often my response is, who cares? That person will weed themselves out. And it's the same principle that you just said. I don't care how fit you are, and I don't care if you're scaling. I care that you did the work, and I care that you're, doing your best. And that's really what you've just said. What I want, though, I kind of gave a really broad brush overview, because the truth is I don't know, but tell me all about yourself. And if you wouldn't mind, your fiance as well. So we sat down at Tampa. Nunu's like, these are my two friends. And by the way, he won't tell you this, but he goes beforehand. It was me, Katie, and Nunu. He's like, just so you know, they're really high energy, and I'm like, all right, and it's a Saturday night. And for the record, after day 1 of a level 1, you're a little tired, you're looking forward to a chill night, but your energy was definitely contagious. Like Katie, Nunu, and I were definitely after, like, that was, oh yeah. And we had an intern there as well, Will. And, we were all just like, wow, their energy was fun. Like, it was like high, but it wasn't like I need to get away from these people high either. So thanks for that. And again, right away, I was like, I got to get this guy on the show. You were a great dude, but let the listeners know who you are.
Yeah. So I'm Ron Torrance. I'm a DO, and my practice is based out of Tampa and Sarasota, Florida. My practice is Regenexx Tampa Bay, so I specialize in orthopedic regenerative medicine, with that being mostly platelet-rich plasma and bone marrow-derived stem cells. And so we treat orthopedic injuries differently than 95 to 99% of the orthopedic world. We like to call ourselves interventional orthopedic specialists, and that's something that really I've had my shoulder treated, and I think everybody's had some sort of injury to deal with if they've been in CrossFit. It's just something that happens, and when you're active and you're doing something is inevitably going to come up to bother you. And I love this approach. I'm extremely passionate about it. As you said, my energy, I just love what I do. So I think that just kind of comes out in me when anybody talks to me, is that I just love what I do and love meeting with people. I really feed off people's energy. And I think that Nunu has a lot of energy himself. So I don't think he gives himself credit there. And I think it's just a kind of a conglomeration of, friends seeing each other in different areas and really bringing all that energy to the same space. So that's what I do. That's what I specialize in. So I specialize in regenerative medicine, a doctor of osteopathic medicine. My fiance, she's a chiropractor, and she specializes in musculoskeletal medicine. She was a former Arasti, so she was one of the clinical directors for Arasti before we met at the 2016 regionals. During the last event, when I don't know whether you remember the 2016 Atlanta regionals. Evans was up on the rope, and did he clinch or did he not before he touched the pole? And that's when Abby and I met. So it's something that's very memorable for us. We're like, we were sitting there watching it. We're sitting there going, I don't know. Like, they were going back to the film, and then that subsequently made him not actually finish. So, anyways, CrossFit brought us together, and so now we kind of have a very unique practice where I do a lot of the regenerative treatments. She sees people post-procedurally through our joint-owned Love Health, where the most important relationship of your life is your health. And we really want to try to get people back to doing the things they love, because that's what we love to do. And we want to make sure that you get back to activity. Motion is lotion, that kind of thing. So I think that's a good introduction. Did you want to hear anything else? I'm also one of the Deer League doctors, as you said very nicely, the DDC. I was out there this past weekend, and it was super fun. We did a workout with Dave, and in traditional Dave fashion, he kind of like stumbles through the workout, and it was super fun because he's like, well, we're gonna do burpees over each other, and then we're gonna run, and we're gonna walk out, and we're gonna run this, and then we're gonna progress up 10 parking spaces, and this could be 10 rounds. And it was like just super fun because once you get to know Dave outside of the CrossFit Games, and that's really kind of the cool thing about Dave Castro, is he's working when he's at the CrossFit Games, and he's not being rude to you, but he's at work, and this is his Super Bowl, and he's not trying to be rude, but he's really got to get his team and his crew in the right places. And he's probably one of the nicest guys I met out there, along with Greg, and just love it out there. It's a good energy and atmosphere. And we're trying to really expose the truth about medicine. So that's really kind of where I am in a nutshell. And yeah, and I also own, well, let me kind of next thing. So I also own a box in Philly where I did all my training, and that's CrossFit Love. And I'm headed up there this weekend. We're having our Christmas party, but definitely that's where I kind of got my start and went down the rabbit hole of CrossFit and enjoying what I do. So I really love what I do, and I hope I can make sure everybody else loves what they do.
Well, you gave us definitely the elevator pitch, but a couple of things that you hit on. One, I think it needs to be said that Dave Castro gets a bad reputation, for sure. And I think he is one of the nicest and most genuine people. And he's one of those people that, if you were in a bind, he'd be there.
Absolutely.
And, so I think people kind of see this image that he portrays, and, they see him at the games, where he barely says a word, but he's busy. And at the end of every games, he makes sure to, he makes a point to say hi to the judges and shake our hands and make sure that we get, a little kudos for all the hard work. So definitely Dave gets a bad rap. It's funny you bring up the Atlanta regional though. So I was pretty friendly with Jeff. When I lived in Florida, his box was about 30 minutes away. But yeah, I remember when he didn't make it. And one of the judges, I've heard this story numerous times. His name's Mike G. Have you met Mike G?
I think so. If I saw him, I probably know him. When
Yeah,
you're around everybody. When you're around enough the people, yeah.
He's no longer with CrossFit. He's with the Salt Bike. He's been on the podcast, but he's the one that came over to Jeff and made that call. And when the cameras showed it, he kind of put his hands up in the air like, I told you guys, he didn't do it. Yeah. And Dave yells at him to this day because it's like, as a judge, you should be unbiased. And he was in the call, but afterwards he just wanted to let everybody know that he was right. But they've kind of talked about that. And yes, unfortunately, it cost Jeff a spot at the games. And lastly, you brought up CrossFit Love. I think you and I talked about it, but CrossFit Love was actually the 1,000th affiliate.
Yes, that is true.
So you get free affiliate fees. I believe back in the day that maybe you don't get it anymore, but originally when they got that, I remember there was a whole thing going on. It's probably 2008, and I knew the original owner of CrossFit Love, and he got free affiliate dues for life at the time.
Yeah.
So lots to talk about, but let's, the people listening to the CrossFit Health episodes really want to hear about what's going on in California when you guys are out there. And you and Abby go out there, what, quarterly now?
It's roughly quarterly, yes. The DDCs are usually quarterly, so the next one's going to be February 2nd. That's actually the day before my birthday. We are intending on going out at this point. And it's something where I make the time to get out there because there's a lot of good speakers that come to the DDC. And the host now has become, it was Pat Sherwood. Pat Sherwood still is the host. But what they've graciously done is Gary Taubes, who is the writer and author of Good Calories, Bad Calories. He also did another book called Why We Get Fat, and he's also coming out with another book. But these are really what exposed the lipid hypothesis and how wrong the lipid hypothesis was, according to Gary Taubes. He's an investigational journalist who, people don't know him. He's fantastic. If you haven't read these books, you should definitely check them out. Good Calories, Bad Calories, and Why We Get Fat. And it's talking about how we really demonized fats and made them the source of problems for medicine. And really, it's not the fats that are the problems. It's really the sugars. And what we did was we really caused people to start decreasing their consumption of fats. And what we've seen is the increasing rise of obesity and diabetes. since that's happened. Because what do we replace fats with? We replace it with carbs. Carbs are easier to eat. They cause you to increase, your caloric consumption, and it's usually, very empty calories, and those are increasing calories. So, a lot of people be like, oh, well, you're demonizing it, saying that, the sugars is causing the problem. I would say that the consumption of sugar causes an increase of caloric intake, which we all know if you increase your caloric intake, coupled with, caloric intake, you're going to cause increase in weight gain. And if it's carbohydrates, usually it's in the abdominal tissue, the abdominal fat. So that's something that really is, that's one of the biggest things that we talk about out there. And Gary Taubes is really the kind of like the guy who's like the host now. And this past weekend, we had 4 different speakers. One was very memorable. She was a female, and she talked about sexual dysfunction and how obesity is causing you not to be able to get erections. And that's part of the really the vascular problems that come when people get obese, and they cause a lot of vascular issues. She was super, super funny. Pat Sherwood said that she's also a stand-up comedian, which I wouldn't doubt. She was pretty entertaining. The other person was Asim. I forget his name. Asim. He's a cardiologist out of England, and he works for like the NIH, I believe, right now. And he was fantastic. He was super well spoken, and talks about really how the industries of sugar really kind of have paid off a lot of the journals, and making the journals really kind of show us that you can do. They pay for all these studies, and if the study doesn't show what they want it to show, they pretty much just squash the study. And at the end of the day, I think that sugar just causes an overconsumption of calories, which causes our general health to go down. And if we can really get off the couch and off the carbs, that's really the mantra that we would really go with the DDC.
So you guys all get out there, and is it just a bunch of crazy doctors that are like the, weird doctors in your world that don't believe, not necessarily don't believe, but don't prescribe to what most other doctors do? Is it just like a party the entire time, or are you guys studying and thinking about how to advance this? Is it just casual get-together? It's like, what goes on at these DDCs? Like, give us the backstage pass, if you will, since most of us will never get to check these out.
Great question. And what I would relate this to is when you go to HealthPalooza, when you go into these sanctionals, right? If you're not participating in the sanctionals, what is it about? It's about the relationships that you build. And I think that's for any conference that you go to. So this conference is more about linking up like-minded people to try to really solve the problem that is the healthcare system, right? It's not a healthcare system, it's a sick care system. We treat the people when they get sick. We don't prevent problems at this point. We just treat the people when they get sick. So we'll give you a diabetes medication when you have diabetes. We'll give you a hypertensive medication when you have hypertension. And one of the best prescriptions is physical fitness and diet, exercise and diet. So that's really why, and also you can talk about this at the level 1. What's the first part of the pyramid for the level 1? It's nutrition, right?
Absolutely.
So that's really, really where I think that the biggest misconception is, we're not going out there and just having a big party. We're actually trying to figure out ways to make our system a better system. And right now it's broken. It's really, almost over 11% of our GDP, last time I checked, was our healthcare system. And it continues to climb because it's a sick care system. And the more sick we get people, the more drugs they take, the more money that gets fed back into the pharmaceutical industry, which then ends up doing this vicious cycle. So, and that's why, if we don't fix this, we're gonna really go broke. The country's gonna go broke up because of healthcare. So that's what we're trying to fix. We're trying to expose the truth and really try to start, and that's really the CrossFit Health. It starts with the truth, and once we expose the truth, we can figure out that from there.
But I would imagine there's a little bit of partying going on.
So I'll give you my this past weekend. So I flew into Santa Rosa. We got to drive down over the Golden Gate, which was super fun. Never been over the Golden Gate Bridge. And so that was on Saturday. Okay, so we get there. And so the first night, I worked with Danielle Hale and organized a little mixer. So we can all get together and again, have those conversations. What are you doing in your practice? How can we help our patients more? How can we do those things? You're having a drink, but it's something where this is, you're trying to have a drink to try to help solve problems. The guy I spoke to, he was out there, I have to pull his name up. But he's got a direct primary care practice that he has started. And he had 6,000 patients in his practice before, having to care for 6,000 patients. And he told everybody, he gave them a letter and said, hey, listen, I'm only accepting 350 patients for my direct primary care, which will be $75 a month, so that you can have access to working with me more one-on-one, and I don't have to see a huge number of patients. And this is something that's a really big push and movement right now, because you can't functionally see 6,000 patients in your panel and really have people actually have more than 5 to 10 minutes with the doctor. Now, a direct primary care practice allows for more time with your doctor, which is what we're trying to do. They're trying to really push the envelope and try to do a better way to prevent problems before they become problems. So that's so that was the first Saturday night. So I'll walk you through the whole weekend. So
all right, dude, take us through.
Yeah, so that was the first conversation we had, and then Tom McCoy, he was there as well. He's a ER doctor he's a director for a regional hospital in California. He shows up pretty frequently, and he's been there pretty religiously. So I talked with him about what that looks like from the other side, right? The reverse side of the coin. We have this guy who's going into direct primary care, which is more the preventative side. And then we also have the side where, Tom, he's seeing people come in with diabetic ketoacidosis, with problems that are preventable if they start doing exercise and eating right, but they're coming in and they're just going, doc, give me a pill. Or, and they're dying at 40, 50 from heart attacks, and they're not taking care of themselves, and they fall down and they break their hip because they don't have exercise because of osteoporosis or osteopenia. These are things that are really plaguing our healthcare industry. And so these conversations are really good to have, because he sees that side, and he's like, having a kid who's 16 come in and he's in diabetic ketoacidosis. That's because he's got type 2 diabetes at 16 years old. He's 400 pounds. And he's essentially become it's not really the direct result of his fault, but I think it's his upbringing. And we got to really work on figuring out how to correct his dietary habits, which probably start with his family, which are probably also overweight or obese and having problems. So it starts at the beginning, right? You have to start with the exercise and, exercise and diet, again, going back to nutrition, really kind of hammering that home and making sure that people are eating right and staying away from sugars and processed foods. So that's kind of like what we did on Saturday night.
And this all, you watched the fights? Good fights, right?
Yeah. Usman finally got him in
Covington.
Yeah.
I thought Covington. I mean, he had a broken jaw in the third round, and I think he just shows how tough those guys are. But This is also coinciding with a level 1, correct?
Yes. So the DDC are the people who have gone to the level 1 already. So the level 1 for the new MD level 1s, they get there on Saturday morning, and they do their Saturday class. It's a typical level 1, and they go through the typical level 1 training, really. And with one caveat, Sunday Greg came and spoke to all of us, the DDC and the level 1, at CrossFit HQ, and gave us a talk about really why this weekend was actually, I don't know if you guys saw the recent settlement for $4 million from the NSA. Was it NSA?
NSCA.
NSCA. So the NSCA, and they're deleting files and all this kind of stuff. And we had a really good breakdown on what actually happened there. And it was pretty appalling to see what the NSCA went through to try to really damage CrossFit's culture and CrossFit's name, right? They pretty much slandered CrossFit, was it libel or slander? It was written, right? So his thing was libel. I don't know. I'm not.
Either way, they lied about CrossFit and injuries and all of that good stuff. So it's nice to see that it was finally resolved and CrossFit was, free and clear of all of those. So as someone, you're a really fit guy.
Mhm.
You do Ragnar races, you compete locally, all that kind of stuff. I think one of the biggest pushbacks that we got in the community is when Coach Glassman made a lot of shifts in the last year or two,
Yeah.
right? So be it the website, be it, the shift from regional to sanctionals with a little less emphasis, it seems like, on competition, although this year is super exciting. And I think, it's pretty cool to see long term his vision is actually working.
Yeah.
But really his goal is to push health. What do you tell people that are out there that are, oh, I loved CrossFit because of this or that, and now it's like this guy's just trying to push health? Like, as a doctor, what do you say to those people, and how do you feel about it?
So that's a great question, and Greg says it best. Pat says it best. Sherwood, and there's a Pat Sherwood's starting a Legends course and Masters course, and this is where I think that we've forgotten where our roots are as a CrossFit community. It's a community, and the it's you're only as strong as your weakest link, and you cheer on even the last person who finishes, and that's really what this is all about, right? It's getting people healthier and getting people off the couch, off the carbs, and if your mom or grandma are sitting there and they're trying to get their groceries to the house, what do they have to do on a regular day-to-day basis? If they have to put their groceries down at the front door, they have to do a deadlift and a squat, and they have to do these fundamental things. And if we're not focusing on health, we're going to continue to, getting those people in to do some exercise and movement. And that's really where I think that we've kind of forgotten our roots. The games are the CrossFit games. They were something that came on, kind of like got everything notoriety. But CrossFit as a whole, and as what this was based on, the level one, nutrition's the first box, right? We have to make sure that we focus on what's the most important thing. The people who come in the gym, it kind of frustrates me when I see people come in the gym with the donuts and all these kind of things that are super, super unhealthy and super sugar packed. And I'm sitting there going like, come on, guys. I mean, like, this is, or, especially if it's a coach, right? If it's somebody, a member, like, hey, listen, it's okay to have a cheat day every once in a while and like have a good snack and stuff. But I really, we've got to lead by example. And a lot of times we forget what we're trying to do. It's not about how strong the strongest one is, but it's how strong the whole community is. And that's why Sparta was as strong as they were back in mythology, right? They were strong. If one shield went up or one shield got taken down, the shield was the most important part in Sparta, because it's a team. Now, if your shoulder, your helmet came off, that didn't bother anybody, but the shield would make a weak link in the whole line and cause people, possibly to defeat the Spartans. So we got to remember that we have to help and raise up every person in the community, and it's not just one person that is our community. It's every single member in your gym.
I like that. Yeah. And, I think there's a lot of people, myself included, who probably, you're guilty of, hey, we bring in these foods and that foods for fun or post workout. And, we use that kind of excuse of, oh, glycogen, and we have to replenish it. But yeah, there's probably people at the box that are struggling with their nutrition, and maybe no matter what their workout look like, shouldn't be having a donut post workout. And it's important to remember. I know when I've had my boxes or even just been a coach at boxes, you bring in the leftovers from the holidays that we're about to have. But yeah, you might be able to hold strong and have willpower, but the other people might not be able to.
Yeah.
So where do you see it? You kind of have an inside view, and you hear Coach Glassman talk last week. Like, where do you think we're going? 2018 and 2019 were a big change for a lot of people, from the change in the regionals to 2 opens to the change in the website January 1 of this past year. What do you think is going to happen in 2020 and beyond?
So I think 2020 and beyond really are going to be more of the first. 2020 is going to be the first new year of the open being in October and being officially in October. I think it's going to be good because, quite frankly, I'm worn out. I did both opens, and I quite frankly have been trying to do this 1,000,000-meter row, and it's been very, very taxing. But it's almost been good because it's almost like my active recovery after a whole year. When you're doing, you got 10 weeks of the open and giving your all on all these workouts, and sometimes repeating them if you're somebody who really, is really like passionate about it. You're really putting your CNS on overload. And I'm super excited to see kind of what this year plays out like. I do think that, I think the website is fantastic now. I think it's got a lot of good stuff. Get your family into the boxes. I think that that's really what we're lurking on for this year. I can tell you that Pat Sherwood and Nicole Carroll are working on really making sure that we have things that people can do at home when they're on their couch or by their couch. I think you've probably seen the amazing living room on CrossFit.com. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to help more people get healthy. And that's probably the most underserved population. They get to their 50s, and like my dad included, my dad, used to run like 6 miles and stuff. I used to watch him do a lot of things. He used to play baseball and everything. And now he's like, oh, well, I hurt. And I'm like, well, are you doing any exercise? You sit there, you do your thing. Now I see him stretching and doing things because he sees my brother and I really being a good influence. And I went and did that Ragnar, and I'm like, you should be doing some squats. I looked at your bones, man, and I treated him. I'm treating him, and like I'm like, hey, you're like withering away. We need to get some like more protein in your diet. We need to get you doing some more exercise. This is good for bone density, right? What's good for arthritis? Exercise. And eating right. And then what's good for that's really going to help make your bones stronger. What's good for osteoporosis, osteopenia? Exercise, weight bearing exercise. And these are things that I think that what we're going to see in 2020 is that we're just going to see a traditional year, a new traditional year, coupled with really good verbiage. And I think that we're going to see more community. I think this is going to be great for community because, quite frankly, doing the open and like being teams and all that kind of stuff, you have so many people vying for these spots. It makes you I personally, like, from 2016 to 2018, or no 2015 to 2018, no 2014, let's say. So I feel like my body was like just getting destroyed working out. And when is the off season for CrossFit, right? Like, so this past year we haven't had one. We had no downtime. And I think that some people, you need to have it, right? Baseball has an off season for a reason. Go to the gym and work out. CrossFit has, you're supposed to go to the gym and work out after CrossFit. No, you're supposed to have an off season. Maybe do some sports. Maybe do some, a little bit more dynamic. Get some more. I think one thing that CrossFit kind of doesn't do as much, but it depends on the programming. Is lateral movements, some dynamic movements to try to really work on some of those the cross body stuff. So
you said you do things like the Ragnar. You're rowing 1,000,000 miles. We just had Greg Hammond on from Concept 2. So you're doing 1,000,000 miles over the course of the year?
1,000,000 meters, yeah, 1,000,000 meters. Yeah.
1,000,000 meters, I mean. And so you began that on January 1st?
Kathy Glassman comes up to me when we were out there at the DDC in December, and she goes, do you want to do 1,000,000 meters? And so she has this whole spreadsheet. And I got to admit, I'm pretty behind. I'm probably going to have to row a lot here in these last days, and hopefully I make it. And but that's the challenge, right?
So let's see, 1,000,000. Let me try to type this into my computer right now. I can't tell how many zeros I have. Okay, there's 0 divided by 365.
Yep.
So you need to do over a 2K every day.
Over 2K every day, yes.
Right, you need to do 2.8.
Yeah. So if you do 4K, you get 100 days off. I didn't stick to that.
So you do 4K. Wait, let me do the math again. So 265 times, let me see this, times 4 equals, oh wait, no, it should be 4,000. Yeah, that puts you over 1,000,000. Okay. Yeah. But that's a lot.
Right?
You say it in a way like, hey, if you just do a 4K a couple times a week, no big deal.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I talked to Kathy this week, and she's like, we got to figure out a better thing for next year, because she's like, the rowing got old, and I'm like, absolutely. Can we do anything with an erg? Like, can we do like the bike, the row, and the ski erg? Maybe we can.
That'd be a cool, like, hey, you can do 1,000,000 meters in any kind of conjunction of those 3 things. I think I've never heard someone do the 1,000,000 meters that doesn't get to about this point in the year and realize they made a big mistake. And it's like, I got to row a marathon the next 7 days in a row. That's almost anyone that does 1,000,000 meters gets to this point. Very few people start and stay consistent for 365 days.
Well, and so here's my bugaboo, right? We had 2 opens, and then I'm a person who wants to do. I've been doing Awaken training series with Marcus Philly. I've been doing that since they kind of came out, and I enjoy it. It's something more where I'm doing a little bit more functional bodybuilding stuff, and I'm doing a lot of cross body and a lot of kettlebell stuff. But not every day am I rowing. So I would add like a row into there. And if I had rowing, it's like I tried to translate that, like, whatever rowing I did, I like recorded it. But like, some days it's like there's no rowing in there. So like I changed like a bike, or I changed like a skier or something, like I'd go to the row, and like, I don't know if that's the right stimulus. I think I'm doing a lot of pulling. But it's been fun. It's been fun because you do a 2K warm up, right? If you just do a 2K warm up, it's you're sitting there for what, 8 minutes. It's not bad. I mean, that's all you really need to stick to, and then maybe do another, like if you have any during the workout, and you're good. And Greg Hammond hooked me up with a refurbished rower. I bought that from him, from Concept 2. It's at the house now, so I use it all the time.
I was gonna say you basically need a rower at your house you could do it at the box, but you're just going to be in the way. And I've had rowers in my previous homes before, and whether you're training for something specific, it's easy. Like you throw on some Netflix and you can row. So Greg though. Yeah, great dude. Yeah. Just on if you guys are listening to this episode, Greg talks all about Concept 2. Great guy. But yeah, anybody that gets into these challenges, I know on the level 1 staff, there's a guy named, you've probably met him, Brian Contosh. He's been on our episode, but Tosh, Nicole's fiance. Okay. And there's always a crew of people that do something crazy. I think they've done a row in the past. I know one year they did as many rounds of Cindy as you can do in a year.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we do this CrossFit thing so we don't specialize, but then you wind up specializing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to hook you up with some muscle anarchy courtesy of Thunder Bro when we get off this episode. You'll like that. It's similar to Marcus's stuff. He's got some great stuff out there. So what's next for you in 2020? What are you going to do to help lead the charge to get people to understand how important this fitness thing is?
So what I'm going to do, so I just emailed Kathy and said, what's the challenge for this year?
Well, keep me posted. Let me know what it is. If it's something that's in my wheelhouse, maybe I'll shoot Kathy a message and see if I can get in on it. I need a little challenge.
Yeah, I just shot her an email. I'm like, hey, Kathy, what's the challenge for this year? Because we talked about it, we never actually defined it. That's so one of the things for this year. So I'm actually becoming a partner in my practice, which is super exciting.
Congrats.
We're opening a Miami location February 3rd, and that's been a big. I don't think it's super building a location. If anybody's opened a box, you can understand that, but medical becomes a little bit even more. There's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot, making sure that you have all the licensing and all those kind of things. So that's what I do. But in my practice, it's nice because my visits are an hour long, and I get to talk to people about that nutrition, about that exercise component, about how they can get back to doing what they love. And that's what 2020 holds for me is, I want to continue to help people avoid orthopedic surgery. And that's really what for me is happening. From the DDC perspective, I know that they're starting a beta test on the website. They're going to have any previous DDC member or MD level 1s listed on the website. So I actually do some functional consults to try to help people if they're in adrenal fatigue or those kind of things, still kind of like as a little caveat. My fiance does most of the initial consults, and if it's super taxing, I'll jump in because I actually I'm the medical advisory board for drax.com and also for Chris Kresser. I don't know if you know either of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so Chris Kresser is functional medicine, does a lot of stuff. He was just on the Joe Rogan podcast with James Wilkes talking about the greatest movie ever, or greatest documentary ever. What is it called? Like
Game Changers.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. That's a whole.
That was a great episode, though. Yeah, if you guys are listening, it was entertaining because, basically you have these people arguing, but something, I always like when you can see people arguing different points, but in a friendly way. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say it was friendly, but there was no yelling, there was no screaming, there were no threats. But basically, Chris Kessler comes off kind of like a serial killer.
Really?
You know, and I mean that in a good way. Super smart. I believe him. I trust him. Like, but he's just. I say that in such a way that he doesn't show emotion. You know, he's making very valid points. He has his notes, and he doesn't let it deviate. He doesn't get emotionally invested, and I think that throws off like James Wilkes in this example because he was so heated.
Yes.
But Kessler's just like, no, this is the truth, and it's like you're almost afraid of those people. Like, I want you to get mad, but you're not, and it was cool. It was a great episode and definitely eye opening. And if you're a box owner or coach and you get in your members that ask you about game changers, go listen to that because it'll point you towards the truth.
Absolutely, and that's my biggest thing. You know, in that podcast, just kind of spoiler alert: if you don't want to listen, you don't want to like know anything about the podcast, you want to listen for yourself. Don't listen to this. But so the biggest thing that I saw was they both agree on the same fundamental diet. It's plant-based with well-sourced meats, and to get enough plant-based and nuts, you know, nuts, seeds, and lettuce and all these kind of like greens, right? And greens, you have to eat a lot of greens, really. And then those well-sourced meats really give you that protein, and eating those together really help. Really, they talk about like kind of hermos. That was it. I forget the term that they were hermos. It wasn't hermosis, but there's a term. Where you have the synergy with the plants and the meats together actually make it super beneficial for you, and having the bioavailability that meats have with the B vitamins and such. And they talk about the B vitamins being okay. Well, yeah, you have to. They supplement it. Well, that's poor sources of meat. They have to supplement it with poor sources of meat, and it's just one of those things where, you know, Kresser makes one statement, and James Wilkes jumps down his throat, which I was like, you know, listen, you're not the problem that I had with it was I liked it. That was a great discussion. A lot of times, Joe was super good at really kind of leading the discussion and being the mediator. But the one thing that I found was a little bit kind of perplexing to me was the way James Wilkes personally kind of attacked Chris Kresser.
Yeah.
And you didn't, you know, you said this. It's like, no, man, we're having a discussion here. And he asked him to clarify his point of view at the start, and James bounced all over that question. And it just, to me, is as somebody, you know, James is a very good debater, but I don't necessarily think he had the right persona. Like, he does make allusions in that film that I'm concerned about, and that I think my patients would be concerned about looking at. Right? They look like they have red meat, and then they immediately put cigarette smoking next to it. And he doesn't make the statement. He's like, oh, well, that wasn't meant to be that way, but you put it right next to cigarette smoking. What do you think people are going to think in their head? You know, it's like you're making illusions, and just because you're not saying it doesn't mean that people aren't thinking it. You know. So.
Well, and he was trying to win these, like, in my opinion, these little small battles of like peanut butter, and it was like no one cared. Okay, you're right. It's 3 scoops of peanut butter. It's not 5. Like, who cares? Like, that's not the big picture argument that we're trying to make here. And it was just like these little tiny wins versus actually confronting the big issue.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, anything else to add for the listeners that are out there tuning in to hear you?
Yeah. So one thing I like to talk about is our company, Regenexx. We are really the world's leading provider of regenerative treatments. We have, if you go to regenexx.com, regenexx.com, you can look up studies talking about, you know, really what can be treated with regenerative medicine. And if you're looking for a provider, you have some injuries or anything like that, that'd be fantastic to, you know, obviously check that website out. They do have the 40 different locations throughout the country. I obviously would prefer that you come see me in Florida, get a Florida vacation. And if you have any problems, come see me. But that's fantastic. You just go to the website and see which one's close to you. And they have a really cool, actual way that the website actually will direct you to the one that's closest to you when you actually go on the website, which is pretty cool. So that's something that, you know, I'm super, I think that people get, you know, cut on for the wrong things. Meniscectomies, cutting out a meniscus is not beneficial. There's multiple studies now that show that. Don't ever get a fusion. If anybody's talking about a fusion, make sure that you try some injection therapy for your lumbar spine if you have any back problems or anything like that. There's some things that, you know, there's really no good evidence anymore pointing out for those kind of treatments. And I want to make sure that people find an alternative to surgery and at least try that first. It's you know, in my field, it's an interventional orthopedics. It's definitely worth a shot and trying to make sure that person gets better. So That's like the only thing. I mean, like,
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. Let me ask for a free diagnosis while we're on the phone here. I have something known as hallux rigidus. Have you heard of it?
yes, yes,
Is that treatable by you guys?
absolutely. And that's something your great toe is very, it's almost become fused essentially if that's what's going on.
Yes,
And painful.
extremely painful.
Absolutely, man. I could get you injecting your joint and see if we can get you some relief. I do PRP or stem cells into that joint depending on how severe the hallux is, and I'd be happy to see it. And if you want to document it, we could like even have you come down and have like a little treatment vacation, and we could get you going live. I'll inject you live.
Ooh,
With
I don't know why I didn't think of it when we met, but yeah, I did have one cortisone shot in it about 2 years ago. It helped tremendously, but I was like, okay, I don't want to be doing this forever. And the cortisone shot itself left me like immobile for about a week. Like I could barely walk on it. And I've just been dealing with it in the meantime. But I'm like, okay, maybe I need to do something. I ordered a little break. It hurts primarily when I train jujitsu, which is every day, and lunges
okay.
because there's no flexion in that toe, right? So I basically avoid lunges, or when I have to in things like the open, I basically step with my foot turned out in a way that I'm probably going to hurt something else. So yeah, I got to either get to Tampa or find if you got a spot here in Boulder.
Yeah, so one of my good buddies, Jason Markle, he actually was one of the OG guys at the CrossFit Games. I think he was there in 2011 for medical. Markle,
Oh, wow.
MAKLE, and he was one of the original like medical staff. So he's out there. He's at the Centeno Schultz clinic out in Broomfield. He's a good friend of mine. Good shout out to him. He's at MD level 1 as well. We went to the same one together. That was the last one at the ranch, and he does fantastic work. Always like to get out of the cold though. Come, get a beach day or two. We can treat you. I like to play up our Florida medical leave trip.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar. I lived in Naples for a few years. If I do that, I have to visit all my family, and the stress of that. But yeah, maybe I can sneak into Tampa, or get a seminar scheduled there again and
No
come see.
holiday trips. No holiday trips, Jason. You're not going to see your family over holidays.
When you travel as much as I do for CrossFit and for other things, you just want to stay home over the holidays.
Yeah,
But
I can appreciate that, man. I travel a good deal because of the box in Philly. So, but yeah, man. No, I appreciate you having me on. If anybody has any questions, hit me up. I'm at Love Health Doc. That's my handle on Instagram. And happy to answer questions. Slide my DMs. Shoot me some questions. I do Facebook Live events. If you're on my if you follow me on Facebook, Ron Torrance. I do Facebook Live events bi-weekly on Tuesdays where I answer anybody's questions about regenerative treatments, anything about nutrition. I'm happy to answer those things too. And just trying to really change the healthcare to be better care and making people happy and healthy, and make sure that they are able to love the ones that they love.
awesome. Yes, I can appreciate everything you're doing. And like Ron said, check him out. Check out Regenexx. Check out his Instagram. Go check out his Facebook Lives because, I think you're seeing that tide shift at least a little bit in the health world. And it's, one of the first questions whether I ask or check him out, it's like, hey, does my doctor do this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. So it's great that you're leading by example and really taking charge. So yeah, and I'm gonna hit you up right now once we get off and get set up to get something done to this toe.
Yeah, man.
It's amazing how such a small little joint impacts my life.
I broke my toe. Real quick caveat: I broke my toe playing beach volleyball, and I've got very similar. Mine's not that joint, but the one distal to it. So I'm right there with you, man. I'm trying to make sure that my toes stay healthy, but it does bother you. It does make a difference, and you can't dorsiflex that toe. I'll have my fiance work with you with a little bit of range of motion, mobility on the toe. She'll do some our joint mobs, and then I'll get you treated and we'll get you feeling better.
Sounds good, Doc. Well, thanks so much for being on. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jason, have a great hour of your day, guys. Okay.
The best.
All right. The best. All right. See you, man.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. Just a reminder, Fern and I have an amazing new show called Dropping In, premiering on our YouTube channel in early 2020. Be sure to head over to the Best Hour of Their Day YouTube channel now, subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. You've probably heard us talking about it, summarizing some of our trip. You can see some highlights up on our Instagram as well at Best Hour of Their Day. But I promise you, you're not going to want to miss out. So subscribe now. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for letting us be a part of your lives. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of Best Hour of Their Day.